Discover the incredible secrets of 7 strange ancient laws that transformed civilizations forever. Sarah's hands trembled as she opened the dusty journal, revealing her grandfather's delicate script. The words leapt off the page, promising revelations of laws that reshaped destinies. Yet as she read, the weight of her own life crushed down harder. At 35, juggling 2 jobs and caring for her 2 children alone, every line felt like another burden demanding her attention. She could almost hear her grandfather's voice in her mind, a mix of encouragement and sorrow, urging her to seek knowledge while the world outside pressed relentlessly against her. Is it worth it? Can I find time to weave these stories with my fraying life? Waves of desperation surged through her, the voice of obligation and the echo of lost dreams battling within her like clashing titans. She looked at the cluttered kitchen, remnants of dinner still strewn about leftover spaghetti, an unfinished homework sheet from her eldest, and a stack of bills waiting to be sorted. In a town where opportunities slipped through fingers like sand, Sarah longed for meaning beyond survival. The possibility of chasing dreams felt foolishly distant. But the journal called to her with an urgency that stirred her soul. The law of honest work and dignity shimmered like a beacon, a promise of purpose. If her grandfather had been an esteemed history teacher, perhaps this was a legacy worth resurrecting. But how could she be the rock her children needed while venturing into uncharted territory? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah felt a swell of determination but quickly dismissed it. What was she thinking? The journal waved antique authority, yet her reality felt raw and unforgiving. The late nights spent at the diner, the eternal pressure from her boss to excel, the fear of failure gnawing at the edges of her ambition. Could the ancient wisdom truly reshape her existence? As she delved deeper into the pages, she uncovered a dark history tied to her family, haunting shadows lurking behind ancestral pride. Tension wound tighter in Sarah's chest. The unraveling of her family's dignity became a rallying cry and a shackle. Governed by the history swirling around her, she found herself oscillating between anger and despair. How could she confront the fears that encased her if she couldn't expose her children's inheritance to the merciless truths woven into their bloodline? A flicker of hope ignited when Mr. Thompson, the local historian, offered her mentorship. He shared her passion, but he, too, bore scars from opposing the town's unyielding traditions. Could she rally enough courage to reclaim her family's name and her own? Just then, a slip of paper slipped from the journal, unreadable scrawls smudged with age, but it hinted at an even darker truth. She stood locked in a storm of emotions, questions swelling in her mind. What if honesty turned to betrayal? Could uncovering the truth cost her their safety? As she faced the chilling implications of her growing knowledge, a surge of anguish flooded her veins. The stakes had never been higher, and as the looming specter of her family's history clawed at her consciousness, Sarah's heart raced. The shadows deepened, drawing closer, tightening their grim embrace around her aspirations. Would she have the strength to push through, or would the weight of her lineage silence her voice forever? As the tension settled heavily around her like a thick fog, Sarah took a deep breath, reminding herself that every great journey begins with an initial step, no matter how daunting. The slip of paper weighed in her hand, both an invitation and a curse, urging her to decipher its message. Caught in the indecision of her personal fight, she turned her attention back to the open journal, seeking solace and clarity from the ancient laws that had once inspired her grandfather. Each entry magnified something she yearned for, not just wisdom but purpose. Would these laws set her free, or would they ensnare her deeper in family troubles? Ignoring disquieting doubts, she picked up a pen, her hands steadying as she recounted her own dreams and fears. What had been her journey thus far? A life lived in the shadows of others, defined by obligations, not aspirations. Still, could she really wrestle with the implications of her heritage? Her fingers danced across the page, and a sudden thought struck her. Perhaps the shadows of her family were not limitations but lessons waiting to be addressed. She could transform this inherited anguish into clarity. There was power, after all, in confronting one's history. Determined, Sarah committed to her plan. She would meet Mr. Thompson, not only as a mentor but as a partner in unraveling her family's past. Contemplating their first meeting, nerves prickled at her again. What if she wasn't capable? Soon, her mind was a whirlpool of anxiety. Memories of juggling work shifts and trying to maintain order at home surfaced. What if confronting her family's history led her into turmoil that would spill over and affect her children's lives? Yet as she stood staring out her kitchen window, she caught sight of her children playing in the yard, innocent and unblemished by the weight of their lineage. Their laughter broke through the gloom that clung to her heart. If she didn't seek the truth, what legacy would she ultimately pass down? Would she let the shadows of the past win over her dreams? A spark ignited within, and she shook herself free from despair. Sitting back down, she penned a list of questions to prepare for her discussion with Mr. Thompson. What had her ancestors done wrong? Where had their choices led them astray? And how could their lessons aid her in forging a new path? She felt a flicker of ancient strength rekindled, an awareness that perhaps within those very shadows lay powerful insights waiting to be uncovered. The hours passed quickly as she prepared notes, as if her pen were an extension of her will, transforming doubt into achievable goals. The responsibility of empowering herself intertwined seamlessly with her devotion to her children, a legacy she could mold rather than inherit. Later that evening, after the children had drifted to sleep, Sarah considered how she would approach Mr. Thompson. Could confronting the town's dusty history alter her course? The shadows still lurked, but she no longer felt ensnared by them. Rather, they became a canvas upon which she could redefine herself, a process that might just breathe new life into her weary soul. With a newfound resolve, she finally went to bed, but sleep did not find her easily. The slip of paper, hidden under the journal, loomed in her mind. There was urgency, an unfinished business hidden in the words yet unread. What did it contain? The thought echoed repeatedly until she felt she might burst. As darkness enveloped her room, anticipation clawed at her gut, pressing her for answers that lay just out of reach. Little did she know that the journey she was about to embark on with Mr. Thompson would not just reveal her family's hidden past but challenge her understanding of truth itself. And as the first rays of dawn broke the horizon, she sensed that the time had come to dive deep into a confrontation that would ultimately redefine her. Would she emerge victorious, or would the buried truths consume her? As the sun cast tentative rays across her kitchen, Sarah rose, fortified but aware of the mountain of emotional terrain yet to scale. The air felt charged, and with it carried the whisper of her resolution. She had long lived for others, but today, she would take a monumental step toward uncovering her truth. Her meeting with Mr. Thompson loomed ahead, a pivotal moment she would not allow to slip through her fingers. The slip of paper still tugged at her thoughts like the unfinished threads of a tapestry. She dropped her gaze to her notes piled on the table, questions scrawled with both trepidation and anticipation. Each word on the page echoed the conviction she had ignited within. She would not just attend the meeting, she would claim it as a defining moment. The drive to the library where they were set to meet felt longer than usual. Each mile brought a swirl of anxieties and possibilities. What truth awaited her? What repressed history had been shrouded from her sight? Sarah clenched the steering wheel, using the physical action to channel her tempest of emotions into focus. She would be ready to absorb every word, every insight Mr. Thompson offered. Arriving early, she took a moment outside, inhaling the scent of earth after rain. Nature had a way of soothing frayed nerves, reminding her of resilience. Children thrived in playgrounds, laughing, uninhibited. It was a reminder that she had to break her silence. Unburdening herself would not only free her but also pave a way for her children to learn the importance of truth in life. As she entered the library, warm light bathed the historical texts and artifacts. Each shelf was heavy with stories waiting to be excavated. She spotted Mr. Thompson in a cozy reading nook. His presence exuded calm but also a certain gravity that struck her as significant. The very embodiment of wisdom. He seemed composed of the very history she had been yearning to unearth. "Sarah." He greeted her, a welcoming smile forming beneath the tufts of his gray beard. "I'm glad you came. Thank you for meeting me," she replied, taking a seat across from him. Instantaneously, her anxiety began to dissolve as they exchanged pleasantries. His voice was steady, grounding. "Are you ready to dive into your family's past?" he asked, his eyes eyeing her carefully. "Ready as I'll ever be," she answered, the weight of her words echoing her determination. "I want to understand where my family went wrong. I want to learn from it." Mr. Thompson nodded, and for a moment, it felt as though she had entered a sacred space, one where history and future converged. He guided her through her ancestors' actions, revealing choices shrouded in a cloak of secrecy. Hurdles of miscommunication and misunderstandings became apparent as she listened, her heart racing with the sheer weight of realization. Each revelation was a thread gradually pulling the fabric of her identity into focus. These were not mere stories. They were reflections of struggle, lessons embedded in choices that could either condemn or liberate. Her hands clenched her notes, now a lifeline instead of a burden. Yet as invigorating as it was to hear these revelations, beneath the surface a growing unease began to stir within her. Were the heritage she sought to reconcile really just a collection of wrongs? Or did they embody something deeper, an aching call for redemption as well? "Sarah, confronting your lineage is only the beginning. To truly emerge empowered, you'll need to analyze not just what happened, but what it means for you," Mr. Thompson said, his probing gaze meeting hers. "The past shapes us, but we get to choose how it affects our present and future." His words struck a chord. In pursuing the truth, she faced the prospect of unraveling her own identity. Could she find a way to turn these painful legacies into a foundation for her new beginning? Before she knew it, time had slipped away, hours spent in discussion, mapping the past and its lessons. As she glanced at the clock, panic surged through her. This was only the first step. What would she choose to do with this knowledge? "Are you ready to face the shadows?" Mr. Thompson inquired, the question hanging heavy in the air. "They won't own me," she declared, her voice ringing with newfound strength. But as she left, the slip of paper once more resonated within her, a reminder of the darkness yet beckoning for illumination. What could lie hidden in its unread words? This was merely the prelude to her journey. Would she dare to confront the disquiet within? The time had come for Sarah to confront not just her history but her future, to unearth the depths of her identity and challenge the very truths she thought were immutable. The real test awaited. The sun dipped lower in the sky as Sarah drove home, weaving through familiar streets that now seemed surreal. The echoes of her meeting with Mr. Thompson resonated within her, a mix of exhilaration and fear. Each revelation had peeled back layers of her identity she had once deemed impenetrable. Sitting in her driveway, she paused, staring at her reflection in the rearview mirror, examining the subtle shift in her expression. The spark of determination was visible, but so were the shadows of uncertainty lurking in the corners of her mind. What truths would she confront next? The slip of paper, a symbol of an unarticulated past, flickered each moment she hesitated. Ignoring it would mean remaining shackled to those inherited burdens. Sarah exited the car, heart pounding, reminding herself why she had ventured onto this path. Inside, the familiar chaos of her home, the sound of children, the smell of dinner simmering reminded her of everything she loved yet had risked losing by suppressing her own needs. She needed to reconcile her present with the histories she unearthed. Turning to the slip of paper still clasped tightly in her hand, she deliberated on its significance. Each day, it felt as if she had one foot in the past and the other in her current reality. Today, she would choose to step forward. The children's laughter was inviting yet problematic. Was she setting a precedent for them to ignore their truths? Or was she modeling resilience and authenticity? Despite the inner conflict, she realized this was not just about her anymore. She wanted her children to understand that confronting one's past was not an act of rebellion, but a necessary journey toward self-acceptance. That evening, after tucking the kids into bed, Sarah settled into her comfy chair, slip of paper poised in front of her. Her fingers trembled as she unwrapped it, only for the sharp contrast of her heart against the mundane domesticity to intensify. The faint crumpling of the paper broke the silence, a stark reminder of the weight it carried. Drawing a deep breath, she opened it. The words scrawled across the page struck something deep within her, a list of mistakes, choices bearing familial consequences, all leading to the present. Names appeared, faces she recognized but stories she hardly knew. With each line, her mind filled with questions. How had ignorance shaped her family's legacy? What were the implications for her own choices? Could acknowledgement transcend the past? Her mind raced through the tapestry of thoughts, snagging on the tale of a maternal figure, a woman just like her who had faced familial despair but chosen to rise above it, carving out her own narrative. This was more than mere context. It was a guide, a beacon lighting the route for Sarah's footsteps. Inspired by this newfound perspective, Sarah grabbed her journal, her pen a sword ready to battle the shadows. She poured her heart onto the pages. Reflections of her family's imperfections, a compendium of lessons learned through hardship that could empower her children's growth. The act of writing became a catharsis, where knowledge transformed bitterness into wisdom. Yet with each realization, a nagging feeling stirred in her gut. What if this exploration led her to confront other family members who wished to keep these truths buried? The potential conflict simmered in the air, inviting tension into her newfound clarity. Would they rally to defend their secrets, or would they appreciate her courage? As she closed her journal, a chill crept into the room. The past beckoned, but the future felt uncertain. She had laid the groundwork, but the next phase of her journey would require placing her newly acquired strength against those who wielded the past like a weapon. This was only the beginning. The imminent confrontation loomed, threatening to shatter the fragile peace she had carved out. Faced with the possibility of resistance, Sarah wondered, could she forge ahead, or would she falter in the face of familial history? The moment of truth was drawing near. Would she embrace her identity and confront the shadows head-on, or retreat into the safety of silence? With her heart racing, Sarah prepared for the inevitable. It was time to pick her battles wisely. What would her next move reveal? The morning light filtered through the kitchen window, illuminating the chaos of cereal boxes and scattered backpacks. Sarah stood at the counter, a kettle simmering beside her and the slip of paper now tucked safely in her journal. It was a day ripe with potential, a chance to further distance herself from the constraints of her inherited narrative. Her children bounded in, laughter ringing out like a spell, momentarily lifting her somber thoughts. As they chatted excitedly about a school project, Sarah contemplated the contrast between her vibrant present and the shadows lingering in her past. Today, she would take her first steps into a deeper confrontation, and while nurturing her children's light, she had to ensure that they understood the importance of honesty about one's history. As her mind raced with the weight of her decision, she recalled the stories she had uncovered. They had the power to uplift, to shatter generational chains, but first, she needed to speak to her mother. Jason, her eldest, was already nurturing a love for storytelling, and perhaps sharing these truths could ignite a passion in him, a desire to understand the complexities of their family legacy. After sending the kids off to their respective adventures, Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself for the interaction with her mother. She poured herself a cup of tea and settled into a corner of the living room. There was a picture on the wall, a faded version of herself standing next to her mother on a beach during summer. The smiles were genuine, yet what lay beneath those smiles was a chasm of untold stories. Setting the cup down, she picked up her phone. Would this be a moment of rebellion, or the start of a long-overdue dialogue? She dialed her mother's number, her heart racing as it rang. Each pulse echoed the concern that gripped her. Would her mother be receptive to changes she had long been hesitant to discuss? Hello? Her mother's voice, warm but laced with a hint of wariness, sent a rush of memories and emotions. Mom, can we talk? The question floated in the air, fragile yet resolute. Yes, of course. Is everything okay? A familiar concern seeped through the line, mingling with her mother's protectiveness. "Yes, I just think we need to talk about things," Sarah responded, searching for the right way to express the complexity of her emotions. "There's so much I want to understand, and I feel like it's time to confront our family's past together." Silence met her words, heavy with the weight of unaddressed feelings. Sarah could almost feel the gears shifting in her mother's mind, wrestling with what might lie ahead. "What do you mean?" Her mother's voice sliced through the stillness, an invitation wrapped in hesitance. "I have questions about your experiences, and about Grandma's, about all of it," Sarah continued, feeling both anxious and determined. "I need to know where we came from in order to move forward." "I don't think it's so simple, Sarah." The defensiveness hurried back, anchoring her mother's response. "Some things are better left unsaid." The truth of her mother's response struck like a cold wind, stirring doubt. Could the fortress her family had built withstand the weight of honesty, or would it crumble, revealing insurmountable conflict? "I'm not looking to cause trouble," Sarah reassured her, but even as she spoke, she recognized a burgeoning resolve within her. "I just want to break the cycle. We owe it to ourselves and to the next generation." The call ended with promises of a future conversation, but the deeper truth remained unspoken. In the hours that followed, Sarah remained sparked by the encounter, the adrenaline of possibility coursing through her veins. Her mother's hesitation loomed, but she felt an undeniable shift within herself, a readiness to embrace the confrontation. Tomorrow would require more preparation and courage, forcing her to revisit even more painful truths. Sarah understood that her journey was far from over. She needed to gather her thoughts, refine her questions, and prepare for the storm ahead. The time had come to face not just her family's past, but to also confront her own fears. Would she be ready to wield her newfound strength, or would she crumble under the pressure of their hidden truths? She felt the familiar flutter of anxiety dance within her, but this time, it felt intertwined with anticipation. The battle had begun. The fight for her family's truth was calling. Would she have the courage to step onto the battlefield of her own making? Sarah awoke to the early murmur of the world outside, sunlight filtering in through the curtains, only to be met with the weight of the day ahead. Today was a pivotal juncture in her quest for understanding, not merely about her lineage, but her own identity. Questions swirled in her mind like autumn leaves caught in a gust. Her grandmother's past, her mother's silence, her own path. After a quick breakfast, she found herself at her desk, a makeshift war room for her thoughts. A notepad lay before her, half filled with musings, questions, and an outline of how she might approach her mother. Could they really navigate the stormy waters of their family's unspoken traditions, or would the conversation wash them away? The first item on her agenda was her grandmother. Although Sarah had only met her a handful of times, the stories told by her mother and family had always painted a complex portrait, a woman strong enough to play the part of a matriarch, yet burdened by her own secrets. She closed her eyes and tried to picture her not as the distant figure in family folklore, but as a real person with dreams, fears, and tangled histories. What would her grandmother say about the choices she had made? The sacrifices? Did she carry an unfulfilled ambition like Sarah? With each question, a flicker of fear ignited inside her. Fear of what she might uncover. Fear of the truths that awaited her in the dialogue with her mother. She gripped the pen firmly in hand, channeling that fear into an organized list of topics. The act transformed her anxiety into something tangible, an anchor in the turbulent sea of her thoughts. When her daughter, Lily, bounded into the room, Sarah put the notepad aside, greeted by her child's unfiltered enthusiasm. It was a reminder of possibility, a clear slate unfettered by inherited burdens. Perhaps this was an opportunity. The more she navigated her journey, the clearer she could guide her children away from the weight of buried truths. Lily shared a story about a friend at school, showcasing her imagination and creativity. As Sarah listened, she began to weave a connection in her mind. Storytelling had immense power. It could convey legacies and illuminate truths. Would sharing her family's narrative serve to empower her children, making them curious explorers of their own inheritance? "Mom, can we write our stories together?" Lily's innocent query snapped Sarah out of her thoughts. "Of course, sweetie," Sarah replied, a smile breaking through. "That sounds wonderful." The mere idea of writing alongside Lily ignited a spark in Sarah. It was a chance to approach this process collaboratively, perhaps even laying the groundwork for breaking cycles before they took root. Later, with her children settled into their evening routines, Sarah returned to her notepad. It was time to refine her questions, no longer just a series of inquiries but tools for decoding a labyrinth of experiences. As she wrote, the reality of the upcoming conversation with her mother weighed heavily upon her. Each question felt like an arrow aimed at generations of silence. What was your childhood like? What shaped your decisions? How did these experiences pour into my life and those of my children? Suddenly, her phone buzzed unexpectedly. An incoming message from her mother. "I've been thinking about what you said. Maybe we should meet." Could this be the opening she had hoped for? The chance to finally break the cycle of silence. Her pulse quickened, excitement intertwining with anticipation. Yet with it came a twinge of fear. Would her mother truly be willing to confront their intertwined histories? Would they uncover layers too painful to share? Sarah paused and looked out the window, the night sky stretching vast and endless before her. The time had come to challenge everything, to unravel the tapestry of 2 generations and weave it anew. She took a deep breath, clutching her notepad. Tomorrow held the promise of confrontation and revelations. Would it be a moment of liberation, or an unforeseen storm? The stage was set, and Sarah couldn't escape. The gnawing feeling that the true battle awaited within her mother's walls. Would the act of questioning liberate them, or would it trigger deeper fractures? The morning sunlight, warm and inviting, seemed at odds with the turmoil Sarah felt as she prepared for her meeting with her mother. Every nerve in her body buzzed with anticipation, each pulse a reminder of the fraught history they were about to navigate. She had rehearsed different scenarios in her mind, practicing her delivery like an actor preparing for a pivotal role, and yet each possible outcome felt equally daunting. Standing before the mirror, she scrutinized her reflection, searching for resolve in her eyes. "Am I ready?" she questioned herself. The woman staring back was a blend of child and adult, a complex knot of anxieties woven together by the weight of familial expectation. Would she be able to articulate her thoughts without being swept away by the tide of emotions they were about to unleash? In the kitchen, she poured herself a cup of coffee, the rich aroma enveloping her. As she sipped, she glanced over to Lily, engrossed in a book at the table, her small hand occasionally gesturing with delight. A pang of guilt tugged at Sarah. What burdens might she unintentionally wire into her child's psyche? The thought of repeating the cycle of silence chilled her. Yet the pull toward honesty felt like a beacon in the fog. The phone buzzed again. It was a reminder, a gentle nudge that the hour was nearing. With her heart pounding, Sarah retrieved her notepad from her bedroom. The pages now filled with questions that felt like both a map and a minefield. Her quest was more than a conversation. It was a confrontation with fears that had long been locked away. As she drove toward her mother's house, the familiar streets blurred past, her focus captured by the road ahead. Each traffic light felt like a pause, an opportunity to second-guess her motivations and the ocean waves of doubt that crashed against her. What if this meeting opened wounds instead of healing them? What if her mother pushed back, cementing the walls built over decades? With each passing moment, Sarah's determination hardened. She clung to her purpose. This was not merely about her. It was about breaking the silence for Lily and her other children. The potential cycles of hidden truths could not be allowed to persist. No more shadows. Arriving at her mother's house, she took one final deep breath, steadying herself for the layers of history that awaited inside. As she walked up the familiar path, memories flooded back, gatherings, laughter, fragments of joy intertwined with unspoken tension. Today, she sought to unravel that tension, to confront the silence that had held their family captive. As the door creaked open, Sarah found her mother standing in the hallway, an expression of cautious hope mingling with uncertainty. Time seemed suspended in that moment, each woman searching for footing on a precarious ledge. "Hi, Mom," Sarah managed, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. Sarah, her mother replied, stepping forward, the weight hanging between them palpable yet electric with possibility. The time for idle thoughts and rehearsed lines was over. They stood on the threshold of revelation, their paths intertwined by family and by consequence. Would they emerge bonded by truths or fractured by hidden resentments? Can we talk? Sarah ventured, uncertainty lacing her words. Her mother nodded, lips pressed tightly together. What would transgressions reveal, and what healing might emerge? The answers loomed ahead, just out of reach, like distant thunder before the rain. Let us start with your childhood, Sarah said, crossing into the heart of their uncharted territory. It was a beginning, yes, but it was also a summons to face the intricate dance of their shared legacy. Would courage be enough to illuminate their way, or would the shadows prove too strong? The silence settled around them, palpable and dense, as Sarah's words hung in the air. There it was a challenge, a bridge to the past that she hoped would lead to the present's healing. Her mother's expression shifted, revealing a myriad of emotions swirling beneath the surface. Are you sure you want to go there? Her mother asked, voice trembling slightly. There was hesitation, perhaps even fear. It's been so long. The cracks began to form. Sarah sensed that her mother's guarded nature had evolved into a fortress over the years. Yet, this was not about placing blame, it was about reaching for understanding. She inhaled deeply, grounding herself. I think it's necessary, she said. For me, for Lily, for all of us. We can't keep pretending. I can't. For a moment, her mother stared at her as if trying to decipher the resolve etched on her daughter's face. The walls that had kept their relationship static began to tremble under the weight of Sarah's conviction. It's painful to peel back those layers, you know? She finally murmured, wavering as if caught between the past and a potential future of honesty. Sarah nodded, feeling the tremors of fear begin to course through her again. I know, but pretending won't protect us. It only isolates us further. She felt a spark of defiance ignite within. This was her moment to redirect the narrative, to reframe the fears that had dictated her life for too long. What do you want me to say? Her mother asked, folding her arms tightly. It was a defensive posture, and Sarah recognized it for what it was. Plea for safety. Let us talk about the times you remember best, Sarah replied, careful and deliberate. I want to understand how those memories shaped who we are today. Her mother hesitated again, searching her daughter's face as if seeking consent as well as courage within herself. The air grew thick with unresolved tension. With a reluctant sigh, her mother finally spoke. There were moments that brought me joy, but those memories were often clouded with complications. Sarah. Complications. That single word echoed like an unfathomable chasm waiting to be crossed. Sarah leaned in, curiosity battling her anxiety. What do you mean? There were expectations I could never fully meet, her mother admitted, her voice trembling, as the weight of unexpressed feelings began to rise. I felt like I was failing both your father and you. The admission pierced through their earlier uncertainties. It shifted the energy in the room, exposing a vulnerability that Sarah hadn't anticipated. You weren't failing anyone, Sarah whispered, every part of her wanting to connect. You were doing the best you could. Her mother's gaze flickered toward the floor, as if the weight of history was pressing down on her shoulders. But my best didn't always feel like enough, she replied softly, the corners of her mouth turning down in despair. In these revelations, Sarah saw not only her mother's pain but the shadow of her own fears mirrored back at her. What if her attempts at honesty ended up amplifying the struggles they had come to terms with? How deep would the cuts go as they unraveled the family's narrative? Mom, she said, testing the waters of her burgeoning courage, what if we could reframe all of this? What if admitting these broken pieces could lead to something new? Her mother looked up, tears brimming in her eyes, caught in the current of possibility. What are you saying, Sarah? Are you suggesting we could finally tell our story, all of it, instead of just what was palatable? Exactly that, Sarah said, realizing that in seeking to unearth the buried past, she might finally unlock the door to generational change, a way to free Lily and her other children from the shackles of silence. Yet, as she spoke, doubts clawed at her resolve. Would boldness be enough? Just then, a small laughter echoed from the other room. Lily's sweet laughter cutting through the weighty atmosphere. The sound made both women stop, a reminder of what they were fighting for. Maybe we start there, Sarah suggested, the new direction igniting a spark of hope. Let us share our stories, our truths, with Lily. Show her what honesty can look like. As her mother nodded slowly, Sarah felt the stirrings of something transformative. Yet the uncertainty still clung to her. How would they navigate this path together? Then, as her thoughts swirled, a new worry crept in. Would revealing the family's hidden history draw them closer or shatter the fragile progress they had begun? With their fates intertwined, they stood at the precipice of the unknown, both women recognizing the challenge that lay ahead in unearthing the truths of their past. The time had come to face harsh realities. Could they forge a new beginning, or would the shadows loom too large? Sarah felt a rush of adrenaline surge through her as she turned her focus toward the doorway, where Lily was still giggling innocently. It struck her this was not just about them. This was about creating a lineage of courage and transparency, a pathway for Lily that didn't include the burdens of fear and silence. How could she best inspire that in the little girl who could so easily become tethered to the unspoken weight of their family's past? Her mother shifted nervously, folding and unfolding her hands as if trying to maintain control over a situation that felt increasingly beyond her grasp. You really think we can do this? She asked, her voice low, almost vulnerable. I mean, what if reliving it only drags us deeper into sorrow? Then we face it together, Sarah replied, determination hardening her resolve. We can't safeguard our future by burying our past. If we want to give Lily a future unmarred by the weight of secrets, we have to confront our truths. Her mother looked hesitant, but Sarah saw a flicker of something, perhaps hope or perhaps long-buried resentment. It ignited a thought in her. Their past was complex, but it was theirs. There was strength in vulnerability, and acknowledging their shared history might fortify their bond instead of breaking it. We start small, Sarah proposed, thinking aloud. Let us share simple memories. Share how it felt to laugh, how it felt to lose. The language of emotions suddenly felt tangible, as if naming them could give them shape and meaning. Even the bad ones? Her mother queried, a frown creasing her forehead. Would sharing those still seem like wisdom to her? Absolutely, Sarah asserted. How we process pain can teach her resilience. It'll show her that there's strength in acknowledging our feelings, even the difficult ones. The air felt charged, as though the act of speaking those words had summoned a possibility long wished for but never acknowledged. Sarah sensed her mother was contemplating the idea, the defenses she had built over the years wavering for the first time. Maybe she began, hesitated, caught between fear and a flicker of newfound curiosity. It might do us good. A tentative smile broke across her face, fragile yet transformative. They moved into the living room together, the transition a symbolic act that bridged their intent with action. Lily sat on the floor, enchanted by a puppet show she had created, completely engrossed in her own imagination. Hey, cutie, Sarah called softly, kneeling beside her. Want to tell us a story? Lily looked up with bright eyes, her face open and inviting imagination. Yes, a story about a brave princess. In that moment, Sarah was struck by a profound realization. Storytelling had the power to bring forth their raw truths, encapsulated in the innocence of a child's perspective. It became a means of exploration of vulnerability. Each word Lily would utter could serve as a stepping stone toward unveiling their family narrative, a narrative intertwined with laughter, sadness, and ultimately, resilience. As her mother settled beside her, uncertainty still clung to her like a shadow, but Sarah could see the flicker of fire igniting as they embarked on this journey. The profound importance of this intergenerational connection pushed Sarah further, igniting a strategy that began to take shape in her mind. A thought surfaced: could this become a ritual? A weekly narrative of truth-telling, where laughing, crying, and sharing became part of their legacy? Through dialogue and storytelling, could they reshape their understanding of family? create a foundation of emotional honesty that would bolster Lily and her siblings. Yet, as they prepared to dive deeper into this new chapter of being open with their history, a nagging anxiety resurfaced. A question loomed large. What would they uncover in their honesty that could threaten to shake the very foundation of their relationship? The potential for conflict hovered, a delicate balance hanging in the air as they leaned into vulnerability. Would time reveal more than they were ready to handle, or could the act of sharing strengthen their familial ties, breaking generational silence once and for all? As Sarah took a deep breath and prepared to guide her mother into this uncharted territory, she felt the weight of the moment. Little did they know, the journey they were about to embark on could redefine everything they thought they understood about each other and themselves. As the sun rose over their town, casting a warm glow into the kitchen, Sarah felt an unwavering sense of clarity wash over her. Today was the moment of reckoning she had anticipated with growing resolve. She recognized that each step along her transformative journey had been vital, a complex weaving of her family's past into the narrative of her own future. Armed with vulnerability, she breathed deeply, setting her intention to foster a new legacy for her children. Her mother entered the kitchen, apprehension evident in her eyes. The space was filled with an unspoken tension. They were on the verge of unveiling years of unaddressed emotions, but Sarah felt prepared to confront whatever lay ahead. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice steady but compassionate. "I think so," her mother replied, folding her arms defensively but softening as she looked at Sarah. "It's time I senti it?" "Yes," Sarah affirmed, determination underlining her words. "It's time to let the truth breathe." They settled at the kitchen table, a familiar setting now metamorphosed into a sacred space for sharing. Sarah took a deep breath, glancing at the notes she had compiled, then allowing them to fade away as she focused entirely on her mother's gaze. "Let us start with the stories we've been too afraid to tell." Her mother's expression shifted, a torrent of emotions swirling in her deep-set eyes. "You know, my childhood isn't filled with just happy memories," she began, hesitantly picking the threads of her own narrative. "There was joy, yes, but also fear and secrets." With each word that followed, Sarah felt the walls between them slowly crumble. Her mother spoke of tough choices her family had made, of the struggles to meet expectations while burying personal ambition. Moments of fear and happiness seemed to coexist, contradictory yet inseparable, creating a rich tapestry woven with complexity. As her mother relayed experiences that had shaped her into the woman Sarah knew, the conversation evolved from recounting shared pain to a deeper understanding of resilience. Sarah leaned forward, encouraging her to share more, reinforcing that acceptance of their past could act as a powerful tool for healing. "It burdens me," her mother confessed, her voice cracking. "Knowing I had unfulfilled dreams while still trying to raise you, it felt selfish." The words struck Sarah hard. Here lay a vulnerability she had never quite grasped until now. "Mom, it's not selfish to have dreams. It's human," she responded, her voice firm yet tender. "You were balancing your needs with ours, and that's admirable. Let us honor that." In that moment, something shifted within them. Each acknowledgement of past pain seemed to stitch the fabric of their relationship back together, fortifying it with understanding rather than secrecy. The act of sharing was no longer an exposure of wounds, but a communal path toward healing. They began discussing how the intricacies of their family legacy, flavored with both failure and triumph, shaped their perspectives today. As they spoke, Sarah noticed a change in her mother's demeanor. The guardedness slowly shifted to engagement. The act of sharing liberating truths unknotted years of tension. "What I feared most was passing this weight on to you," her mother said at last, eyes brimming with unshed tears. "But you've shared the lesson, and now it's my responsibility to rewrite the narrative for myself and my children," Sarah replied, their gazes locked in mutual understanding. It was a pivotal moment, one that would transcend generations and propel her into the future. They were forging a new lineage based on awareness rather than ignorance. With warmth swelling in her chest, Sarah took the opportunity to reflect on her journey. Once fearful and burdened by inherited shame, she was now reclaiming her identity, not just as a daughter, but as a mother insistent on offering her children a legacy defined by honesty and strength. She no longer craved validation, and it settled firmly into her core. She had begun to understand that the shadows of their history were not chains that bound her but lessons that equipped her for the daunting task ahead. As their conversation deepened, her mother began to express her own desire for resolution. How can we do this? How can we create an environment for our children that encourages speaking the truth? Sarah's heart swelled with pride at her mother's sincerity. We create a family tradition, a storytelling night where we share our experiences, all of them. We bring the light into the dark, she suggested. Her mother nodded, transformation painted across her features. I like that. It would help break the barriers, show them that our past shapes us but doesn't define our future. With renewed purpose, they agreed to navigate these stories together, facing the difficult truths as a united front. The echoes of laughter belonging to Lily, who had stumbled upon the kitchen's open door, reverberated softly, reminding them of what they stood to gain. As the morning sun danced through the windows, Sarah felt a weight lift. No longer a prisoner of fear, she had emerged as an architect of her family's narrative, ready to craft empowerment and honesty. Surrounded by unanswered questions that now felt less daunting, she realized that her journey had solidified her role as a voice for not just her lineage but the legacy she would pass on to her children. Moments later, while they prepared to embrace this new chapter, there was a shift in the air, a feeling of possibility, of purpose that resonated long past the kitchen's confines. Let us start right now, her mother said, her eyes glistening, the palpable excitement illuminating their spirits. In that collective breath, Sarah finally understood the lesson her journey had taught her. Transformation blooms in the confrontation of truth. Healing emerges through the power of shared stories, embracing the beauty in the collective resurrection of their past. It was a promise, a pledge of openness that reverberated far beyond the confines of their kitchen. It was an acceptance of who they were and who they aspired to be, forever etched in the hearts of the women who shared the unbreakable bond of truth. As the realization swept over her, a powerful sense of accomplishment coursed within Sarah. She had done it. She had conquered the labyrinth of her family's painful past and forged new, uncharted paths illuminated by shared light and love. With solid confidence and recognized competence, they embraced both the shadows and the sunlight together, transforming their collective history into a beacon of hope for the future. Now was the moment to share this achievement with the world, to inspire others to break their silences, to illuminate their shadows, so that everyone could find their own narrative of empowerment. If you resonate with this powerful story of transformation, you need to subscribe now to our channel. This is the moment to show your support for more exclusive emotional journeys. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure others can also discover their own paths to healing, and comment your thoughts and theories about Sarah's journey below. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us empower each other to rise above our histories and forge our truths together.